Midwest Women's Herbal Vision Statement. We live in a world where the feminine is honored and respected, where women stand fully in their power, acknowledge their wisdom, skills, and innate healing abilities.
Thanks, Barb. Sorry about the
Thank you.
interruption for the recording there. Just wanted to make sure we got that for the women on the replay. So you handled the interruption well. Let's see. In the coming days, we're going to be sending you some emails with some special offers. We want to make sure you receive them. So please add herbwomengmail.com to your contact list. Or when you get those replays, those emails, go ahead and send us an email back, and so our servers can talk to each other. At this time, I'd like to take an opportunity to say thank you to our sponsors. We really appreciate the sponsors. They make hosting events like this really possible. So we have Moonwise Herbs, Mountain Rose Herbs, Host Defense Mushrooms, Goodland Creative, DNA Hemp, Wisconsin Mycological Society, Driftless Folk School, Herbs on the Side, Frontier Co-op, Pacific Botanicals, Great Lakes Herb Fair, and Natural Awakenings Magazine. If anybody's interested in learning more about sponsorship opportunities, we'll put the MidwestWomen'sHerbal.com, the link in the chat for you. We're really thrilled to announce that registration is open for the 2026 In Our Own Hands Women's Wellness Series. And this series was born out of the pandemic, and it was popular, and we feel that there's a really important to keep connected in the winter. And we discover our own voices, nourish ourselves, partner with herbal medicine to heal ourselves and those around us. When women take our health into our own hands, we have ourselves to rely on and can better persist in trying times. So we'd like to mention that there are scholarships available for the On Our Own Hands series. And Barb's going to put those in the chat. So we'll put the website, MidwestWomen'sHerbal.com. And when you go onto the website, there's tabs across the top. Click that In Our Own Hands, and you'll be able to find information about that. Judith, of course, our guest tonight, is one of the workshop presenters, and we're going to talk about that more later on. There is an early registration deadline of December 1st. So after that, the prices will increase. So take advantage of the early bird pricing. December 1st, that goes up. We'd like to share, we have a really special one-of-a-kind event through Mycelium Mysteries. It's Mycelium Mysteries Mexico. So we have local guides, mushroom foragers, herbalists, silk artisans, basket weavers that are going to work with us for that week. And this is led by Kim Hunter, the Fungivore, and Traveling Traders Bazaar, and Linda Conroy with Mycelium Mysteries. So this journey drops you into a living culture of fungi, craft, deep relationship with nature. We're going to forage in the forest and feast on what we find, explore traditional medicine, die with mushrooms and plants, and celebrate the resilience and richness of women's knowledge in Oaxaca. Linda, am I pronouncing that town correctly? Oaxaca, when we go to Mexico?
I believe that you are not, but I can't pronounce it correctly myself. So.
It's Oaxaca.
Oaxaca,
thank you.
Yes.
Thank you. I get nervous sometimes when I'm in the spotlight here, so forgive me, ladies. So you can find that information. Barb's going to put that in the chat as well, the link to Mycelium Mysteries Mexico. And be on the lookout for registration for the 15th annual Midwest Women's Herbal Conference. That's May 22nd to the 24th, 2026. So mark that on your calendars. Judith is going to participate in that. She's going to be leading our ceremonies and teaching there. Registration is going to launch in December. And let's see. Another thing or two to talk about here, Midwest Women's Herbal. We believe that learning should be accessible year-round. So we happily bring a variety of virtual learning experiences directly through the Herb Women Classroom. The community conversations are part of that. We've got about 14, 15 of those now. So you can look at those at herbwomenclassroom.com. We have individual recordings from conferences, conference packages on there. We've got the past In Our Own Hands series. So there's this, pot of gold there with all these women presenters and speakers that you can find at the Herb Women Classroom. We have a membership opportunities, different levels of that. where we'll send you curated packages monthly and quarterly. And there's also a monthly mentoring session with Linda Conroy. And last month she talked about advocacy skills for herbalists. So she talks about a topic, and then we have a Q&A and discussion afterwards. So be sure to check out the herbwomenclassroom.com. All right. Our guest, Reverend Judith Laxer, will be introduced in a few moments. In the meantime, I'd like to share at the end of tonight's conversation, you'll have the opportunity to win a registration to the upcoming In Our Own Hands Women's Wellness Series. That's the January to March winter series. Midwest Women's Herbal Apron, a recording of Judith's exhilarating keynote presentation from the 2023 Midwest Women's Herbal Conference. That recording is Letting Ourselves Off the Hook. That was a keynote. And then we're also giving away a signed copy of Judith's book, Along the Wheel of Time, Sacred Stories for Nature Lovers. So you need to be present to win, so stick around to the end. Please keep all questions and comments in the chat tonight, focused on tonight's topic. And at this time, I'd like to introduce Linda Conroy. Linda Conroy is the founder and visionary of the Midwest Women's Herbal Mycelium Mysteries, the In Our Own Hands series, the Herbal Classroom. She's a bioregional herbalist that's been teaching for over 30 years. She runs apprenticeship programs, teaches a number of classes. And I spent 3 years apprenticing with Linda, really shifted my life. So if you're interested in going deeper with the plants, I encourage you to check out her website, Moonwise Herbs. And and after that, and after spending so much time with the conference, I joined the coordinating team and working with Linda and the other team members producing events like this. So all right, my part is over, and welcome, Linda.
Thank you, Sherry, and thank you for hosting tonight and for sharing all of that information. It's a lot of information. And thank you for being a part of the coordinating team. It's such a pleasure to be working with you. And I love how your herbal knowledge comes through as we're producing the events and choosing workshops. Being an herbalist has many different ways of being expressed, and I really see you bringing that into as we're working with the presenters and choosing topics and that kind of stuff. So thank you. And thank you, Barb, for being here tonight and taking care of technology. That's super important. If anybody needs that, don't forget that Barb is here and she can help you. And I will be taking questions with Judith in the chat. And so put your questions there as we go along if you have them. And I see somebody asking for a link to Judith's book. If we can link to that so people can learn about that, that would be great. And I am so thrilled to be here tonight with Judith and to be talking about this topic, especially as we're getting ready to enter Samhain and the veil between the worlds is thin. And so I have a feeling this conversation is going to be really rich. And I want to introduce you to Judith on two planes. I'm going to read her bio in a minute, but I want to tell you that Judith is responsible in part for all of this these expressions of what we're doing here, because I met Judith probably 30 years ago, and I met her in Seattle, Washington when I lived there. And we used to both participate in the Women of Wisdom spirituality conference that was a huge deal there for a lot of years. And we spent a lot of time together there. And I did a reading with her when I was getting ready to considering moving from the Pacific Northwest to the Midwest. And she did my reading and she said, yes, you should go there. There's something there for you that you need to be doing. And so I came here and have been doing, creating this kind of madness, the workshops and the women's space, and ever since. And so Judith has a hand in that. And not only did she have a hand in it, but she partners with us a lot. She comes and teaches, she shares her wisdom, and I'm so honored and so grateful. And she also provides a lot of support behind the scenes and cheers us on. And she's just such a great ally to have in the women's work here. And so I do want to read her bio to you too, because I always miss something if I don't read someone's bio. And so I'm going to read it. It's Reverend Judith Laxer. She's a modern day mystic, which is our topic for tonight, is how does one become a mystic? What is a mystic? Who believes that beauty, humor, and the wonders of nature make life worth living. She's happy to return to this wellness series, to the work that we're doing. She's always returns with great enthusiasm, which I love. And she is the founding priestess of Gaia's Temple and Moonwise Mystery School. Judith is a keynote speaker, teacher of the magical arts and mysteries, and author of Along the Wheel of Time, Sacred Stories for Nature Lovers, from Ravenswood Publishing. She dedicates her work to the rise and cultural integration of the divine feminine in all her magnificence and wisdom. And so welcome, Judith.
Thank you so much. I'm so happy to be here with you, Linda. So honored. Hi, everyone.
So grateful for this conversation. I was just getting so excited today. First of all, thinking about Samhain, of course, that we're doing it tonight, and so grateful that you were available this evening. And then thinking about, gosh, what is a mystic and what does this mean? So I'd like us to dive into that. But first, do you want to say some things about Samhain? Because, I think some of us have been celebrating it for a long time, but some people don't know what Samhain is or what the different
Yes.
traditions are, and maybe just say a few words about what this time of year and what that means.
Yes, absolutely. I'm happy to. So, Samhain, which is spelled Samhain, so it looks like it's pronounced Samhain, but it's Celtic, and it's pronounced Samhain, and in some dialects, Samhain or Savin, but typically we hear Samhain here anyway. And it is the night when it is said that the veil between the worlds of the living and our beloved dead draws very, very thin. Now, I believe that our ancestors are always just on the other side. So I don't think it means that they're closer than they've ever been. But I do think when the veil draws thin, we can more easily communicate with them and receive messages from them from the other side. So it's funny because Sherry introduced this as, the night that is, what did you say, Sherry? You said the eve of Halloween. And a Halloween is actually a contraction of Hallowed evening. It is the night before November 1st, which is so it's a whole 24 hours that happens there. And it's the time when we honor our beloved dead. As you can see behind me is my ancestor altars up here with all of my beloved dead on there, or most of them anyway. So it's a very magical time, and it opens us up to those particular mysteries of life and death. So this is really the perfect time to have this conversation.
It really is.
Yes.
And, there's so many different traditions that have holidays during this time. And we know that, a lot of the Christian traditions have incorporated the pre-Christian, earth-centered traditions into
Yes.
their holidays and their celebrations as well.
Yes, there's one in particular that I think the women here will really appreciate, and it's my favorite way of honoring the Sabbath of Samhain, which is to have what's called the silent supper. And so I gather with some dear friends, and each one of us, we contribute to the meal. Everybody makes a meal from a family tradition of something. And we put a little bit of each one of those plates, dishes on the plate in the center. We put a glass of wine or whatever it is we're drinking in the center. And then we ring a little bell and everybody holds silence and we eat in silence, which is very different than how most of us eat. We're either having a conversation with other people, or our eyes are on a screen, or we're reading a book. But when there's no distractions and you're eating and you're you can feel them around you, and the gratitude is just magnificent. And then when everyone's finished and the forks and knives go down, we all make eye contact around the table. That's how we know we finished. We bring sound back in on a sigh. Oh, and then we chatter like crazy, during dessert. But it's just a beautiful way to honor our beloveds through food, which is a huge part lineage, and in silence. It's just lovely. So that's a great and very easy thing to do on Samhain, which is either tomorrow night or Saturday, to have a silent supper. It's called a silent supper. It's beautiful, so beautiful.
Well, and it just made me want to be quiet when you were it just feels like I just want to be quiet. So even if you don't have a supper, you can take a few minutes or take a little bit of time and just be in that quiet space, because you're right, we
Yes.
don't do that very often.
We don't.
And
Yeah.
listening is, being able to listen and take in the messages.
That's right. I mean, if this is the night when the veil is thin, or this is the time when we want to ask questions, we want to receive messages from our ancestors, we've got to be quiet enough to listen. So
Mhm.
it's just so beautiful. It goes so deep. It's just lovely.
Can put the talking stick over to the ancestors, and then you
Mhm.
can't, well, that's the stick you get.
Exactly.
I love it. Thank you for that. Mm. So the other thing I was hoping we could actually define what a mystic is, because when you look around and you look at there's lots of different definitions. And we were talking a little bit before we got hopped on the call about, before everybody else came on, about how all kinds of spiritual traditions have mystics. But there's definitely a general core of what that means, even to every tradition. So I'm wondering if you might want to define it for us, so we're all talking about the same thing tonight when we're talking about what
Right.
is a mystic in general, and then we'll add the overlay of what is an herbal mystic.
Okay, sounds good. So I looked up a definition of Merriam-Webster's definition of mystic. And so I'll read it to you first, and then there's a few things I want to say about it. It says a mystic is a person, obviously, who seeks by contemplation and self-surrender to obtain unity with or absorption into the deity or the absolute. So that's a fancy way of saying the divine. Or who believes in the spiritual apprehension of truths that are beyond the intellect. So that's why a mystic can be from any religious or spiritual tradition, because through contemplation, which means it's thoughtful and reflective, and also the self-surrendering means we're not coming from a place of ego. We are sort of surrendering that to contemplate the divine, however we perceive the divine. And we know that we can be taught about it, we can be indoctrinated into it, but when we contemplate it for ourselves, or when we stay engaged in what that is, we become a mystic, because we are staying engaged with the mystery that can never be empirically proven. So that also leads us into the spiritual realms, because that's something that we just believe, and we can't prove it, but we have faith in it. We put our faith there. So a mystic is someone who contemplates these mysteries and is content without proof, but to continue walking on that mystical path, engaging with the mysteries without actually knowing for certain. And I think what that does is grow our body's muscle to know and to trust what is true for ourselves in relationship to the divine. So that's how I would define mystic. But I love that it said self-surrender, because then we don't get to be the arbiters of, the empirical truth, only this way is right or only that way is right. It's a beautiful thing. And some people get very frustrated by mystery, because we are enculturated to get the data and get the facts and know for sure, and the mysteries do not work that way. The enjoyment doesn't happen that way.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, and it's so interesting, because I know my experiences, there is some lived experience in it, for sure, that that only reinforces my connection. But it's not something I could prove to someone else. Yeah. And so one of the things too I was thinking about is how bringing the herbal piece into it, because it is something that can't be proven and it's something that is a mystery and it's, ethereal in a lot of ways, is that the bringing the herbal piece in, especially, really practical herbal knowledge,
Yeah.
um, seems to ground that work. And I was wondering, because I know you certainly someone can be a mystic and not ground themselves in the herbal work, which is
Oh,
fine.
absolutely. Yeah.
But I know you have chosen actually to pursue practical herbal, education. And, you're a gardener and you spend time with the plants and you have that practical grounding.
Yes.
And I was wondering if you could talk a little bit about how you were led to that and why you chose to bring that into your work.
Well, I do have an experience that happened to me when I was very, very young, interacting with one of the fae, so a fairy. I was about 3 years old. So there's that experience that I can certainly speak to, but I just want to jump here to say that, I follow earth-based spirituality, which makes me a pagan priest. I'm a pagan priestess, right? So pagan means of the earth. That's all it means, really. And so I'm also a witch, because pagan spirituality is a sort of blanket term. And then there's all these different kinds of pagans, like witches and druids and people who follow Shinto and all those who experience the earth and the elements as divine, as opposed to some creator who created the elements and they're the ones who are divine. So anyway, so I follow earth-based spirituality. So for me, connecting with the natural world brings me deeper into my sense of spirituality. So that's where mysticism and the plants really came together for me. And then, like I said, when I was a very little girl, there was a copse of trees between my house and the house next door. And it was birch trees and a few oaks and a couple of hazelnuts. And there was this little path in through that I used to go in. And there was a rock, that was my rock, and that I sat on. And one day I went in there and I picked up a stick, which became my wand. And I went and I stood up on my rock and I pointed my wand, and a lily of the valley opened up, and up came a fairy. And she rose. It sounds crazy, but I'm a mystic. I'm not going to worry about it. She rose up right in front of me, and I noticed that she wasn't wearing any shoes. And I said, "Where are your shoes?" And she said, "I don't have any." And I said, "Doesn't it hurt to walk?" Oh, she didn't rise up yet. I said, "Doesn't it hurt to walk?" And, like barefoot. And she said, "Well, if it does, I just do this." And up she rose right in front of me. And I was like, wow, like I didn't know you could do that. So I sat down on the rock and I started taking my shoes and socks off. And then I heard my mother call, "Judith." And that was it. She was gone. It was gone. The whole experience was over. But I'm telling you, that happened as real as I am talking to you today. So here I was, about 3 years old, and I was directly involved with the other world. Now I come to understand these as the devas of the plants, the spirits of the plants. She appeared in fairy form, but this tells me that the plants are, as we know, not just nothing, that there's a spirit, that there's an intelligence there, that they speak to us, that there's an essence. And I was just introduced to that very, very early. So that was the first part of it. And then the next thing that kind of brought me into mysticism was some deaths that happened in my family. Both my grandfather and my cousin Peter died in the same summer. And so I was introduced to the realm of death when I was 7 years old. And then when I was 12 years old, my aunt died on her 50th birthday, and then started coming to me in dreams. And in the first dream, that she came to me. She asked me to apologize to my mother for something that happened long before I was born. I could not know of it. And it was so upsetting to me that I started to cry, and my sobbing woke me up. And I went downstairs to the kitchen where my mom and dad were having their morning coffee. And they said, "What's the matter? Why are you crying?" And I said, Aunt Renee told me that she's sorry for, and I told them why. And my mother's face went white, and my father looked at me like this. And had they said, "Oh, was that wonderful? Aunt Renee came to you in a dream. Thank you for the apology," it would have been a completely different experience. But their reaction, because this was something that I said, like I said, I could never have known about. It happened long before I was born. It was hush hush. It was nothing that anybody talked about. So their reaction chilled me to the bone. And I thought, uh-oh, I better put this under wraps. This is not okay. But when I got a little older, I realized, I'm open to these mysteries. And in fact, just to finish this one little story, which was actually a very big story in my life because it oriented me in a way that I've never changed since. So my aunt came to me sometime in the week of her birth-death day for 5 years in a row. And I was always like paralyzed with fear in these dreams. And finally, when I was maybe 17 or about 5 years later, I finally mustered up my courage and I said, I yelled to her, "Why are you coming to me?" And she said, "Because you're the only one who can hear me." So I did kind of put it under wraps. And I didn't really talk about it with a lot of people. This deep connection I had to the unseen world, and that there was more than just the mundane tasks of going to school and then eventually getting a job and like all the things that we do to maintain our physical lives in the mundane world. But those were the things that gave rise to this deeply spiritual, mystical life that I am living. And that's kind of how that got going. That's the Reader Digest version of those experiences.
Well, it's so amazing that you've, stayed with it, because I think there are so many messages to put it away. I'm sure most of us on this call have had experiences where something, small or big has come up, and we've either been given the message to put it under wraps, or we've gotten uncomfortable with it and put it under wraps because it's not something that's encouraged.
That's right. That's right.
In our general, lot in our everyday
It's
life.
true. It's true. And I would say also that I don't think that I am special. I don't think that I'm different. I don't think that I'm more powerful or more whatever you want to put that in. I think everybody really, especially when we're young, before we learn to shut that down, we all have these kind of mystical experiences. I'm sure everyone felt the way I felt when I climbed that apple tree and I was held, I'm sure of that. But we do learn in this world that gives advantage to or indoctrinates us, and it conditions us to be logical and linear. It's very masculine, very patriarchal. That's all that's valued. That's all that is accepted. So we do kind of shut it down and we put it under wraps. But I believe that all of us have this, and the way forward with it really is to start to listen to and trust and honor our intuition.
And I think conversations like this really help. We've got in the chat, we've got somebody said they have goosebumps. Somebody else says, absolutely. Somebody else says, thank you for sharing your story. It helped me to know we aren't so different. So
Mhm.
this is what people are saying in the chat as you're talking. And so,
Yeah.
yes, I mean, I bet you on some level we all have some resonance. And the
Yes.
way it comes to each of us and the way it gets expressed is unique and different, right? But
Yes.
but the similarity is that there is something there.
Yes.
And certainly, we all have access to it, but I think women have access to it in a really unique way,
I think
a
so
lot of
too.
times.
I think
Yes.
so too. Yeah.
Yes.
I know I get a lot of guff for saying this, but I really do believe that women are the superior sex.
Well,
Because we can do the logical linear, but we're also totally tuned in. We're not afraid of our emotions. It's okay that we have our emotions. Anyway, we could go in that direction, but I do believe that intuition is definitely the realm of women's realm. That doesn't mean that men don't have intuition or can't follow it or develop it. But I think it is more natural for us, for sure.
Well, absolutely. And we have cycles, and our
Yeah,
cycles take us closer to
right.
so there's all kinds of reasons for that, for sure, and even
Yeah,
practical reasons. I think
yeah,
I
yeah.
think it just takes a lot more work for men to access that. And certainly a lot of traditions have demonstrated that.
That's right.
We do have two questions I thought might be interesting. One of them going back to, I don't know if Wendy still wants this clarity, but she was asking about something you said earlier. How did you say that? Trust what is true for ourselves, etc., about the divine. Do you want to say that again or say it differently?
Yeah, well, I will say it I don't know exactly how I said it, but what I mean by that is that each one of us has our own experience of what we find divine. What most of us have experienced has been being raised in a culture or a religion that tells us what that is. I think religious education is very important because I think it helps to orient us to the fact that there's something beyond the mundane. But I think as we mature, we have to rethink what it is that we've learned and if that is true for us in this moment or how it is that we have developed. Yeah, I wasn't raised as a pagan for sure, but I found it because in the patriarchal religion I was raised in, I was like, where's the divine feminine that I experience in my life, but I don't see it and I'm not hearing about it and I'm not reading about it. Where is she? Oh, there she is. There's
Mhm.
the goddess, for example.
Right.
And that's what dropped me there. So I think that it is very individual. And I think it's important for us to know that just because we learned something as a kid doesn't mean we have to believe it forever.
Right.
If it doesn't resonate.
Right. Well, I know I was raised in it. I always say I was a cultural Catholic because we weren't real strict Catholics. But the things that always appealed to me were the candle lighting and the incense
The
burning and
ritual parts
yeah,
that
the
they
ritual part.
stole from us. Yeah.
Exactly. So when I was drawn to, earth-centered spirituality, it just made so much sense to me why I was resonated with those things. And some of the other things I heard, like fear God and you will be happy, I was like, well, that it doesn't sound right. So, that questioning, I know for me came in, and then I started, teasing out what resonated with me and what didn't. And certainly, there's earth-centered traditions that were pre-Christian traditions that were the pagan and the Wiccan and the earth-centered traditions and
Yeah.
indigenous spiritual
Right.
traditions all had mystics way before there was a religion and a
Yes, and there's so
religious.
much mystery in nature. There's so much
Mhm.
mystery in nature. So we don't have to separate ourselves from that because we're not separate from it. There's enough to keep us like totally enthralled with the mystery of life simply by, being out in nature, as we all know here, and preaching to the
Yes.
choir. But that sort of thing. Yeah.
Well, and it gets to the other question, that Ingrid's asking here is plant spirit medicine part of the mystic experience? And, I know we had spoken one of our um lineages, one of our foremothers of the mystic tradition that and the herbal medicine that was written down because obviously it was pre-Christianity that existed, but is Hildegard of Bingen, and her her mystic tradition and her herbal practice that was connected to that was one of the
Yes,
first times it was actually written down. And I
yes.
wondered if you want to speak a little bit about that, and then we can talk a little bit about how plant spirit medicine and plant medicine, integrates into
Yes,
this
this
mystic
is
work.
one of the things that I think is important to know about Hildegard. We're on a first name basis. Is that Hildegard was an anchoress, and an anchoress is a woman who dedicates herself and lives in a small little section of the church. And she's there to anchor the holy in that space. So she's not out in the world. She doesn't teach or interact. I mean, she only interacts with people who seek her out for her wisdom. And even then is only at certain times and for certain reasons. So a lot of what gave rise to all of this within her was that she wasn't distracted by daily, gotta do this, gotta do that. That doesn't mean she wasn't in service, because she was a devout Catholic and was completely devoted to her spirituality. But she was an anchoress. So she spent a lot of time alone, a lot of time contemplating this particular plant, getting to know this particular plant, tuning into it, working with it, growing it, all of the things that we learn to do without the distraction of the mundane world. And there's a devotion to that makes a mystic. When you're devoted to the mystery, knowing you will never be able to solve it. And sometimes that means, well, often that means you're not part of mainstream.
Mhm.
That's an okay thing. It doesn't mean we don't belong. It just means maybe we don't belong there.
Well, and even with Hildegard, she didn't even belong in the Catholic Church. She caused a lot of
She did.
tension with her visions. She
Yep.
was, challenged around the visions that she saw. She advocated for the women to be separated from the priests so that they wouldn't be molested, and she
Yep.
got a lot of flack for that. Like, she was not even she wasn't even mainstream in her own,
No,
her
exactly.
own.
She was a total feminist.
Yes, yeah.
She was. She wrote
So th-
beautiful music too, like psalms and hymns and just beautiful, beautiful stuff, but stuff that she could connect to because she wasn't distracted.
right. And I think that happens that being devoted, I think that's an important word in all of this, is the devotion. And I know for myself, working with plants for over 30 years, every single day I'm interacting and spending time with plants and getting new insights and having that relationship and furthering it and deepening it. And the devotion is there, and it's a relationship. And I think,
Yes.
when somebody asks, is plant spirit medicine a part of this? That's where it deviates from the reductionist model of only taking herbalism and having it be a medical model, but having it not be reductionist, but having it be relational in nature.
Yes, 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 absolutely. One more thing I want to say about the word devotion, because I'm a bit of a wordy nerd. The VO in devotion is the same VO as in vow,
Mm,
as in vote. It's something that we have a conviction for. We're willing to show up for again and again. It's something we make a promise to. It's just so beautiful.
So
Yes.
the question in that, so I know you had these mystic experiences as you were coming of
Yes.
age, as you were young.
Yes.
I know that you've sought out specific herbal education. Do you
Right.
have a moment or something that was the moment when you knew that it was more of a devotion than just something that was happening?
With
Like
regard to the herb specific or to my life as a mystic?
either or both.
Yeah, yeah. I my life as a mystic, I did have a moment. It was kind of a series of moments, but it was kind of a crash and burn of my former profession, which was as a performing artist. And when I was 32 and I was done with that, I spent about 4 years where I just kind of didn't know what I was supposed to be doing. But I remember coming home from that last tour and I was a mess because I knew it was over for me and I had never studied or learned how to do anything else except that I had my trusty tarot cards in my hand. And so I decided I was going to give myself a reading to find out what I was going to do next. And I remember sitting there just crying because I felt like my life, I was 32 and washed up and I didn't know, and I was just sobbing at the table. And I'm shuffling the cards, and finally I looked at the cards and I thought, oh my goodness, can I like earn a living reading tarot cards? This was back in 1990 something, And so I shuffle, and I turned over a card and it was the high priestess. And I swear to you, she winked at me. And I was like, oh, okay. And so I got some mundane job as a receptionist at a massage center where they gave massages. And every weekend I worked a different psychic fair until I built up enough clientele. And I started working this way as a psychic and working in the spiritual mysteries. So that was kind of that transition from this. But here's the cool thing about this. When I was in show business, I was in New York and I was going for the Tony Award, right? That was the only, Now I realize everything I learned in theater is for ritual and for ceremony, because ritual and ceremony are theater. And so all the skill set that I learned about being unafraid to be in front of people and sing and creating, orchestrating, was all for who I am as a priestess. But if you would have told me in my 20s and early 30s that was going to be for this, I would have said, what? Are you crazy? Anyway, so that happened. And I can tell you, my mom kept a garden when I was a kid. I was always in love with the garden. I was both equal tomboy and ballerina as a kid. I was always up. I had my favorite apple tree. The neighborhood I grew up in had been an apple orchard before they developed it. We had 3 gorgeous Macintosh apple trees in our backyard, and one of them was mine. I was up there all the time. So I had always been connected that way. But it wasn't until I kind of left New York and left show business and created a life here in Seattle, which was way more connected to nature, that my life really turned around that way. And I had more time and energy to devote myself more to the plants and the herbs. And I just want to say something. Go ahead.
Well, just what you lay out, which really always speaks to me, and I know it resonates with me in my own life, is that the universe has a plan that is different than what you and everything that's happening leads to the next thing. Like, it's true. Like, you are a performer and you are really good at it, and it brings other people into it, and it helps other people feel connected. And and you started Gaia's Temple. I mean, how many, talk about devotion. What this was an anniversary year for you.
We just celebrated 25 years of my ministry. 25 years. Yeah, 25 I was 41 years when I started that ministry. Oh my goodness. Yeah.
So the devotion.
And that also was a way of listening to, because it was like she kind of whispered in my ear, people who are meeting on like Sunday mornings in churches and temples and mosques with people of a like mind, and people who follow earth-based spirituality, if they're not in a circle or a grove or a coven, or they have no place to go. So I thought, okay, I'm going to offer a goddess worship service. That wasn't me deciding that. That was her knocking on me. And when that first service was over, someone said, when's the next one of this? And I said, next month. And that was 25 years ago.
Every month since?
Yeah. And it's been every month since. Exactly. So that's what I mean by listening to what is calling you, listening to what resonates deeply, even though everything out there is going to say, are you out of your mind? I started answering that question a little bit differently. It's like, no, you know what? I'm finally in my mind. You're
Mhm.
asking me why I'm not aligning with your mind. And your mind doesn't dictate mine.
Right. Well, my
Yeah.
training is in social work, right? And people are always saying, well, what are you doing with your social work degree? And I'm like, I use it all the time. I work with people.
Yeah.
It's something that, is continuously. So we bring what we, they're building blocks, and we bring
Yes.
that to what we're doing now. So
Yes.
I don't know if you want to answer this or not, but somebody wanted to know what your astrological sign is.
Oh, I'm a Pisces with a Cancer moon and a Leo rising. And I'm
All
really
right.
grateful for my Leo rising, which I think is the part that puts me up front to the spotlight, because with a water, sun, and moon, I would drown. I would just drown in my deep, sensitive, emotional self. But that fire helps to keep me from drowning. So thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I want to, it's so easy with these conversations, just we could spend hours talking about this. And
We could.
um
We could.
so I wanted to focus on a couple things. One is, I know you're doing a workshop for our series this winter, and it's going to be a workshop on actually developing some tangible skills in this arena. And
Yes.
we can all have some sensibility about it, but no matter what, refining and skill building is a part of it. It's not just, oh, this happened to me. There are things you can do. And I'm wondering, what are some things you're going to touch on? And could you throw out a little homework assignment maybe for everybody to do as they go forth, and then
Yes.
let people know what you're going to cover in that class in case they might want to participate.
Yes, 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 absolutely. And I hope you do participate. So the one thing that I think would, one thing for sure, I know we're going to be doing in this class is learning how to read tea leaves, because that is where we bridge the plant material, the beautiful plants, who they are, and the oracle, which is how you connect your spirituality with the practical. So it's not just how to, make a cup of tea, which we all know how to do, but then when that tea is drunk, how do we read the leaves that are left on the bottom of the teacup? And what is the message that comes? And so I guess if there were any homework I would say to do, or that would be good to do in preparation for this class, is to consider what kind of tea you like to drink, to wildcraft those herbs. And I know it's getting into autumn now, so it might be a little past, but I'm sure as herbalists here, you might have already crafted some of those herbs. And
And there
maybe
are still plants out there. I saw
there
ginkgo
are,
leaves
I'm still
today, rose
taking
hips.
yep, yep. I'm
Mm,
still taking in herbs from outside too.
yes.
And decide what those herbs are that you are going to use to make your tea, and then know that you'll be reading those leaves. So if this is the kind of thing that you can wildcraft now and dry between now and January when that class is, then you can find yourself entering into relationship with those specific herbs, that stalk of mint, that lemon balm, that chamomile flower, like whatever that is. Although I would recommend that leaves are better than flowers. Petals can work, but smaller, broken down is better than big chunky things when you're going to read tea leaves. But get yourself in relationship with them now. Let them know. Like, for example, I have a just gonna bring it over here. I have this beautiful tulsi that's been growing outside, and I brought her inside. And come in here and I talk to her every morning. I am so glad you're going to stay with me all this winter. I just love you so much. Look how beautiful you are. Oh my goodness, is that a new flower? Even though you came inside? Like, I am in deep communication with this plant. And that's the kind of thing I'm talking about, so that you feel like you are in relationship with that herb, and then it's going to really enhance the message that you get when we learn to read the tea leaves. So that would be the homework, I'd say.
Mm-hmm. So the class we're talking about is going to be a 3-hour deep dive into a couple different skills. So
Yes.
can you just name a couple of the other things that,
Yeah, well, I'm going to
and I
ask
know
everybody.
there'll be some mystery too, but
There'll be a little bit mystery too, absolutely. But the other thing that I would like us to do would be to read some oracle cards, whether those are actual oracle cards or whether they are tarot cards. Any card that gives you a message is going to be something that we're going to learn how to do. I have a couple of different kind of spreads that I can teach to get different kinds of answers or to show you how to work with them in different ways. And even though that is not herb specific, although there is a couple of herbal tarot decks that you can get, which are wonderful. And also, I just want to show you this one thing. I just found this deck, which is called oh, we can't see it. No, you can't. It's called A Culinary Witch's Oracle Deck. And like, this card is called Rosemary. And it says working with rosemary, what rosemary means. And it's just so every day and now I'm pulling a different culinary thing. So I'm getting into relationship with different parts of my kitchen in an oracular way. Like one day I pulled wooden spoons and it talks about learning and becoming adept at a certain skill. You know, strawberries come up for romance. You know, that's it's really wonderful. So anyway, some sort of a card and learning an oracle is definitely going to be part of this because even though I wouldn't say they're herb specific, I think we're going to start our tea and then we're going to do some cards while this tea is steeping. So it's kind of all part of a piece. So that's
and
another
certainly somebody could bring, there are, like you said, herbal tarot decks, and certainly somebody could bring
Oh
the
yeah,
herbal tarot in for
that's
sure.
right. That's right. That's right. Yeah.
So in terms of bringing the practicality of herbalism in, one of the things that I know in my work that I've been really connecting with deeply is this idea of personal medicine and really being attracted to a plant for a particular reason. Maybe it has a reflection or it's something you're drawn to. It's not something that you read about and prescribe, but it's something the plant speaks to you and says, I'm your healing medicine for this experience or for what's happening.
Yes.
And I know the first time I encountered Tulsi in person, like when you held that plant up, because the smell is such,
Oh,
it's such a healing instigator, that smell of that plant. As soon as you held it up, I could smell it. I bet you
yeah.
other people here could smell it too. There's just something about the smell. My olfactory nerves were stimulated
Kicked
by
in.
what that. Yes, and it's not. I don't even have it in front of me. So
Yeah.
that medicine comes in so many different ways.
Yeah.
That I think through all of our senses. And I'm guessing the one question, maybe if you could answer, because we went in the direction of the mystic piece, but
Yeah.
bringing it back to what led you to want to tangibly learn about the plants in this realm? Because you could just have focused on just learning anointment and that kind of thing, but you
Yeah.
have pursued that tangible learning and understanding of the plants.
Yes. Yes.
How do you see that being important for you to your work?
So when I was learning witchcraft and I was learning to practice witchcraft, one very exciting and what draws a lot of people to witchcraft is spell casting. And when you do spell casting, it's, a pinch of this and a pinch of that when you put together your spell. And so it was like, well, for prosperity, for instance, get the cinnamon sticks and, lunaria and lunaria seeds and like all these different things. And I just found myself like looking at books like, okay, now I have to find, what? And I didn't really know. And I think because it was important to me to feel like I didn't want to just, so much of how I became who I am was to really trust myself, which doesn't mean that I didn't learn a lot from books. Oh my goodness, I'm so grateful for the books that I've learned from. But I didn't want to just like follow blindly. why is cinnamon used in a prosperity spell? Why is rosemary used for remembrance? Why is, I mean, all that sort of stuff. So I started to delve in a little bit more, like, what is this herb? What does it look like? I don't want to just buy it in a little pouch from some magical bookstore somewhere and not know what the heck it is. And so I started to delve in there, and it really just reawakened, how much I loved being in the garden when I was a kid and all that sort of stuff. And so it just led me on the path. And so those two things really dovetailed together. And then, of course, it became, and then, the branches went into everywhere in my life, including, healthcare, nutrition, and, caring for myself, caring for my health, nutrition, magic, soothing, psychological support. I mean, it just was like the whole banana, the whole enchilada, as they say.
The whole enchilada. And this is what, for me, this is integrative health and wellness. It's not just
Yeah.
taking herbs and reducing them and making them into a medicine. Not that
Right.
we can't also do that, but
Right.
having that relational piece. I mean, I've had several serious health problems where I've brought in that magical piece or brought in that reflection, that plant that wouldn't have been prescribed necessarily, but just, because
Right.
I was in relationship to it, it was the plant that was going to hold me through the thing I was experiencing. And so those relational pieces just feel so important and grounding, and that the mystical, that you can't prove but is true.
Yeah.
But then the plants can help bring you into a grounding, especially if you're putting your hands in the dirt.
That's right. That's right. And especially if you don't know the properties or the specific constituents of the plant or whatever, and that's the mystery part. Like if you just trust, like for example, a couple of years ago, all of a sudden cleavers started growing in my yard. I didn't bring them in. And like this huge patch over here and another patch back there. I'm like, what? I didn't know anything about a cleaver, really, or what cleavers were for. But I was fascinated by that. And so I just took them in, I made a vinegar. I'm just going to apply this. I don't really know. Later, I find out that it's great for lymphatic drainage. And my naturopath had just been talking with me about that, how important it is for that to happen for me because I was starting to get swollen here and there, blah, blah, blah. She showed up.
Mhm.
Now, there was a
Yeah.
time when I would have said, who are you? What are you doing here? This is where this is where I'm growing my calendula. You're in. And instead, I'm like, who are you? I approached it with curiosity because you just showed up. I believe in the spirit of the plants and that there's an intelligence that's operating here. But just because I don't know about it doesn't mean it's not here. So what are you trying to tell me?
Yes. And I see that over and over again in my own life with my clients, with my students, that the plants show up when you need them. And
Yeah.
even as a society, there's a great book called Invasive Plant Medicines by a man named Timothy Scott. And he talks about how some of these invasives have come in to help us heal things that we're dealing with right now as a society. So it's even not only on the personal level, but I think we see it on the community level and the societal level as well. And the plants, I think, are continuously, wanting to interact with us and wanting to be in relationship if we just listen.
Right, like is it invasive or is it just coming out in full force because it's trying to get our attention?
Right here, pay attention. Right? Absolutely. So, well, we're coming to the end of our time, and I'm wondering if there's anything that you would like to say or put out there, and if anybody has any last questions. I did want to read what Ingrid wrote here. She wrote, honoring the plant before you consume it and praying with it to do what is necessary by healing. Yes. So yes, we're praying with the
Yeah.
plants, we're praying to them, with them. And they're our
Yeah.
ancestors, the plants
They
have been
are.
here. They are our deep, deep ancestors, and they are in relationship. I know a number of years ago, I had some severe health problems, and somebody said to me, do you feel like the plants let you down? And I said, absolutely not. I feel the opposite. Like, I'm so glad I feel like they're here for me. And so, I think they really are here for us over and over and over again.
I agree. I agree. I agree.
Yes. So we have a
Yes.
question here. Hey, goddess, what do you, and this is from Mira, what do you feel that we need to do to shift what is happening to Gaia?
I think we're doing it. I think the fact that we're gathering here, that we're talking about this, that we're normalizing what the patriarchy would say is evil, bad, wrong, stupid, any detrimental thing that we're trying to suppress women's power, women's intuition, women's understanding, our deep connection to nature. Anything that counters that in any way, no matter how small, is important. And there's way more of us than them. We've seen this power shift happen. What's so frustrating for me is like, again, why don't we learn from history? Like, what? That's what I find so frustrating and just so enraging. But the truth is that as horrible as this is, these kind of regimes, they are not sustainable. They do terrible damage, that is true, but they can't last. So as long as we keep doing what we're doing and keep showing up with the love that we have, stewarding the land the best we can, talking to the Tulsi every morning, that's how we shift what takes place. And just like herbal medicine isn't the silver bullet that's going to make you wake up tomorrow completely cured and healed, our work also is over time. And we need to be devoted to it and keep going a little bit, a little bit, a little bit. And when we need to stop and rest, we can trust that our sisters are still doing a little bit, a little bit. And when we feel restored, we join it again. That's what I would say.
Yeah. And I think we learn from or her story. I'm not sure I understand exactly what you're saying, Mary. Do you want to open your mic and just say what you're intending? I don't know if she can do that, or maybe just rewrite it because I'm not getting exactly what you're trying to say. But yeah, I think showing up, being together, being devoted to the path are her story.
Oh,
Or her,
story.
yes, yes. And this is why we hold these gatherings here, these community conversations we're having. Please go and listen to some of the other ones as well. We've had so many rich conversations. This conversation is so rich. We have the series coming up where you can spend 3 hours together. And then, of course, we have our in-person conferences, which is, kind of the heartbeat, because so many of us are not spending time in person, live, seeing each other, hugging each other, looking each other in the eyes. We really need to keep doing that, and then honoring the plants and the earth and learning how to act with them in a really respectful and caring way. So yes, I concur with you, Judith. Just keep on doing it, and really, and trusting each other that we're each going to have our own devotion and supporting each other, which is something, Judith, thank you so much for all your support. Judith, since she read my tarot cards 30 years or so ago and encouraged me to to take this path myself and to hold this space, she has never not been there for me. She has shown up, she's checked in, she's been here, she's worked with me, and I am so grateful for that devotion, that shared devotion to each other's path and encouraging each other and that reflection.
For you too, Linda. I'm so grateful for you too.
Yes, absolutely. So, any last words before we turn it over to Shari for our giveaways? Because we're going to give a few things away. And I really hope this inspired everyone. And do you
I
have
want to
any
say
last...
thank you so much. Thank you to everyone for showing up tonight. I hope to see you at the wellness series, and I hope to see you at the conference too. So thank you. Thank you. Mwah.
Lots of thank yous in the chats. Beautiful, inspiring. Yes, yes, yes. So let's turn it over to Shari. And thank you, Judith. And we'll see you soon.
Hey.
Wow, I have so many notes and things to reflect upon from the conversation tonight, and just the last question that you answered. Sometimes when I get, upset or discouraged, I think about the work that I'm doing with the Herbal Conference, and which is why I've joined the coordinating team. Because Linda, the first several conferences, I was just bawling my eyes out because I had never been in women's space before. And so when I come back to how I'm contributing as a coordinator, I feel like I'm making a difference because I know that it really does. It's the richness of the programs, it's the importance and the mission and the vision statement and what you hold dear, Linda, and how, how that's coming through the conference. So I really love the talk about devotion and distractions as well. And Lily of the Valley, I remember from my childhood. So when you told that story, that was really sweet for me too. So great. All right, I'm going to pop in real quick to the chat. This is, well, I'll look for it a little bit later. I lost my page there. Oh, no, here it is. Here's what the apron looks like. So if anybody's interested in that, that's one of our giveaways. And let's go ahead and do that one first, since I just mentioned it. So it's really helpful if everybody turns their camera on. I know some of you might be, have your camera off for the discussion. So, but if you turn your camera on, and for any of the winners that we announced tonight, if you send your name and the item that you want to herbwomen@gmail.com, that's so we can connect with you there. So I'm looking at Marla. Marla, you are the winner of the apron.
And
Oh,
there's the
well,
apron. I just
yeah,
shared it up on the screen there. The
popped
Midwest
it up
Women's
there.
Herbal Apron.
And it's really nice because when you pull the two sides of it, that's how it adjusts. So it doesn't have any clips or other things. So there we have Marla for the apron winner. So all right. Okay, I'm going to stop sharing so I can see everybody. Or Linda, I don't know. Can you? Okay, there we go.
I stopped sharing. Yep.
There was another something that popped up on my screen. Okay, so we've given away the apron. So this is the next thing we're giving away is the keynote recording for Judith, letting ourselves off the hook. And oh, this was so inspiring. I resonated resonated with the talk on some different levels, and it was funny. And so we're going to give away a recording, and that recording is at the Herb Women classroom. And Sarah Joy Albrecht, you win that recording of Judith's keynote, and that's the Descent of Inanna. So one of the earliest stories, right? Is that correct?
It's the earliest written story.
There we go. All right. And let's see, let's give away Judith's book. And I'll also mention, we'll put this link. I've put a couple links to Judith's website as we were talking through tonight. And if you look at the bottom of her website, there's a TED talk that she did too, which was really wonderful. It's about time. And that might tie into what you talked about tonight with being present and letting go of distractions. So that might inspire some women. So I watched that a little while, a year or two ago. So Judith has a TED talk as well. So
You want to hold your book up again?
Here's my book. And whoever the winner is, just email me with your name and address, and I will sign it and mail it to you.
Great.
Thank you.
Well, yeah, why don't you send it to the herbwomen@gmail.com so we can help keep track of that, and then we'll go ahead and forward that to you, Judith. So all right, so let's see, a book. How about Pat Hoffbaum? There, Pat's raising her hand there. So Pat, go ahead and Pat, you win the book. And now the grand finale here. This is a registration to the upcoming In Her Own Hands Women's Wellness Series. And the series takes place January, February, March, every other Saturday for 3 hours in the afternoon. There's a variety of different topics. We have voice empowerment. We've got, I'd have to look them all up again. It's escaping me at the moment, but we'll also put that in a link. So somebody's
We're doing sacred seeds, a
Mm.
writing workshop, a voice workshop, a workshop on botanicals for stress. Yeah, there's a lot of different great topics.
Thanks for jumping in and helping me with that, Linda. All right. How about DEE? DEE wins the Women's Wellness Series In Our Own Hands. So there we go. That's all of our giveaways. Thank you, everybody.
Somebody was asking for the location. It's virtual. the In Our Own Hand series is virtual.
We'll put all of this in a follow-up email. So we're going to send a couple of emails. There'll be some discount codes. There'll be links to some of the things we talked about. Any questions, any follow-up, go ahead, send them to email or herbwomen@gmail.com. And if everybody wants to just go ahead and open up your mic and offer some gratitude. And thank you, Linda. Thank you, Judith. Thank you, Barb. And thanks everybody for attending tonight. Good night and enjoy the upcoming Holy Weekend.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank
Great to see you all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you all.
so much.
Look at everybody. How lovely.